I just think they've panicked. I think it might have grave consequences as well. When I look at yesterday, it certainly wasn't an upgrade. Why Schlupp was playing in centre midfield, I just can't get my head around. Zaha not prepared to run back. Don't be surprised by that. You know, I know we've got a new man in charge. Yesterday he runs in the 23s, but he's watched enough games to know that Zaha's not going to run back. You know, they've lost a number of games, and you look since Christmas and you can say, okay, there's concern, but they're in exactly the same position, 12th, as they were this time last year. The difference is now that they haven't got that breathing space beneath them, but they've got games ahead. I think 8 of their remaining games that they play are against teams below them. So it's in their own hands. But now, for me, I look at those players yesterday, they look disjointed, they look down. There's a lot of players there that are impressionable and young that Patrick was nurturing. And this comes down to style. I think I'm hearing that, you know, we want to give players a rollicking. He's not tough enough. He needs to get into the players. We're standing by. It's too calm. It's too nice. That is the modern manager, I'm afraid. You nurture people. You develop people. And it seems to me that they've looked at it and thought, maybe is he too calm? No. It's a learning environment that Patrick was creating. I was completely certain they'd stay up. And now I think they're in the mire.
Who are they going to replace him with?
Well, the two options at the moment seem to be a step back in time in terms of Roy Hodgson. Talks have taken place. He's open, I think, to taking the job until the end of the season, so I wouldn't rule that out. Or there's Paddy McCarthy.
Is that even fair, though, to put
yesterday.
Roy back? Is it even fair to put Roy back into that situation?
Well, he's a safe pair of hands, isn't he?
Yeah, but how many farewells are there going to be at Palace? He was there at the end of last season in a Watford capacity. Fantastic respect for him, and Roy will probably be crazy enough to say, do you know what? I'll come and do it. You know, take his flip flops up. He should be on a beach somewhere. He's had an amazing career, but I do feel that the club, if they just want to use this as a safe pair of hands in this, why not just leave Patrick Vieira in position?
Because they haven't won for 11 games. I mean, I defy any football
13.
club to stand by their manager with that kind of record. The only team I think I'm right in saying they've beaten since Bonfire Night is Bournemouth.
Have you seen the games, though? Alex, have you seen those games?
Through there, it is worth pointing out that the only team that have got fewer points than Crystal Palace since the resumption are Forest Green. So they've had a very, very tough time.
Forest Green,
we can argue,
Alex, because with respect, they're not playing against Manchester United, Spurs, Chelsea, Newcastle, Brighton, Brentford, Liverpool, Man City. I mean, these are the fixtures, aren't they?
They lost to Nathan Jones in Southampton.
Palace are playing against
which was a heck of an achievement.
That was in the FA Cup.
So, and they've lost by the odd goal. So I don't see any amazing alarm there.
That's the key thing, isn't it? They've drawn 5 of those 13 games that we're talking about. You're not going to expect them to beat Arsenal, Man City, Liverpool, Brighton, Manchester United twice, Newcastle, Brighton twice, Chelsea and Tottenham. And during that run, they drew with Manchester United, they drew with Newcastle, they drew with Liverpool and lost by the odd goal to City and Chelsea. And they were in all of those games. It's a bit of a skewed fixture list. And they missed chances during that, which has been a tale of the tape, really.
It was an own goal at Villa.
Zaha missed presentable chances yesterday.
Penalty as well.
And I wonder actually whether or not Patrick is the victim of the fact that the recruitment at that club hasn't been as good as it needs to be.
I agree with that, but the goal they scored yesterday, Jeffrey Schlapp, it was only ever going to be a consolation. That was their first goal in 7 hours. Right. They were the first team since Opta started recording these stats not to have a single shot on target in 3 successive Premier League games.
You'd argue that Chelsea had a bit of a bad run in front of goal as well, by the way, and they stuck with their manager because they believed that ultimately this is the long-term project they want to go through.
Alex, in one of those games.
So why did they hire him in the first place then?
Because they wanted a change of style, and I think they got that change of style last season.
Yeah.
See, we obviously speak to different Crystal Palace fans because the Palace fans that I speak to don't disagree with the decision.
Well, you only speak to the ones that work.
Really?
They think this season has been a little bit of a step backwards in terms of the style. I just don't see how you can defend a manager, even if he's your former teammate, with that kind of record since November. Because you say you were confident they were staying up. They were only heading one way for me under Patrick Vieira.
So who are they going to replace him with?
Well, as I say, it looks like it's Hodgson or
so
Paddy McCarthy.
They don't know.
They don't have a plan.
So they sacked Patrick Vieira after investing what they would expect to be quite a degree of money in terms of wages and bringing him in and convincing him this is a project for him. And then they decided at the first sign of trouble, they've decided to absolutely abandon that project and go back to Roy Hodgson.
The first sign of trouble has been going on since November, this winless run. It's not the first sign of
you
trouble,
don't
it's
realise
March.
you're talking about Crystal Palace and not Tottenham Hotspur or Arsenal or Manchester United here, don't you?
No, but you see, what Alex doesn't take on board is we're saying about the people that they play, the teams they played, Spurs, Chelsea, Manchester United. Look what
they played Chelsea at a time when they could hardly win a game. They played Newcastle at a time when they were distracted by the cup final.
They've spent 650 million in the transfer. Do you know how much they spent this season? Palace, the bottom of the table, 37 million.
I don't disagree with that.
Has not been supported in the transfer market.
Look at the signings. The level of recruitment, the players they've brought in are nowhere near good enough to get them into the top half of the table. It's bottom 6 squad. It's quite an achievement that they're still 12th.
Yeah, and let's tell you what we'll do. Let's sack him just before we play Leicester, we play Leeds, we play Southampton, we play Everton, we play Wolves, we play West Ham. All of the teams below them. You've got to say 2 wins in there.
Do you think his relaxed manner goes against him, though? Because when you first meet Patrick,
I think they found him a bit aloof.
You are taken aback by the fact that this player with this huge reputation as a firebrand midfielder, someone who goes in and smashes people on a regular basis, is not like that as a human being, is he? He's a very good communicator. He's very strategic thinker.
I believe,
and he's very softly spoken.
They've lost belief in him. And because they can't hear people, throwing drinks around and shouting and screaming at players. Well, maybe some of the people who work at that club are used to that. There's talk of Sean Derry going in and getting into the players. That's not the philosophy of the manager. I'm afraid you're not the manager, Sean. You needed to abide by the rules of the manager, which is to nurture the players and just listen in and learn maybe for a change. Arsene Wenger taught me that you don't have to shout and scream at people. You can nurture people. When he came into the building, I thought, is it possible for nice people to win things? Yes, it is. And when it happens, I tell you, it's a beautiful feeling. You trust everybody around you. It's easy to have a go and to rollick players. The hardest thing in the world is to stand back and just try and nurture them. Now, I think these players were benefiting from that. And it's very interesting to see how they capitulated at the weekend and they collapsed. 1 or 2 people, Anderson didn't even make it onto the pitch. The goalkeeper's out. I think it's going to be a very tough look. You saw Steve Parish in the director's box sat with his son yesterday. He looks a very worried man. I think he's made the wrong call.
There's no way on this earth that it can be a great strategic move to replace someone who's got managerial experience with someone who hasn't got any. And it also can't be a great move by anybody to bring back someone who you wanted to get rid of because you didn't like the style they employed when you previously had them in charge. So either way, Steve Parish, whoever's made this decision, has got to this point without thinking about what happens next, and that's a dereliction of duty.
And he's not the first owner who's done that this season. We saw it at Leeds with the mess they made of their managerial search. We've seen the Southampton debacle when they appointed somebody in Nathan Jones who clearly wasn't up to being a Premier League manager. So there's 2 sides to this story. I agree with you. I think to sack Patrick Vieira before the Arsenal game without a plan, when you know you've got a 2-week international break coming up, was strange. I'd have given him the Arsenal game. I'm not sure they would have lost quite as heavily. I agree with you, Martin, had Patrick have been in charge. But I do think it was the right decision if they feel that the players are not necessarily buying into what he's trying to do. And I think some of those in the dressing room did find Patrick a bit aloof and did want a little bit more fire from him.
How do you know that?
Because
you're telling me
I speak to people at the football club as you do, Martin. So
what did they want then? They wanted a rollicking from the manager, is that what you're saying?
I don't think any of them were offended when Sean Derry told them some home truths after they lost to Everton. I think Patrick Vieira was the only one who got offended by that.
But you're stepping out of line because it's not the philosophy of the manager. Look, they've decided to swap people who've captained the club and been at the club, a passion against people who've got some tactical nous. That's what happened. You saw that yesterday. And no disrespect to Paddy yesterday as a new manager, Paddy McCarthy. He's out of his depth. And tactically, he demonstrated me today that he wasn't at the level. So he can't be the manager for the rest of the season.
Leeds were interested in appointing Patrick Vieira earlier in the season after they sacked Jesse Marsh. If things don't work out there, don't be surprised if they go for him